There we go. Evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the ordinary council meeting being held on the 23rd of May 2023 at 7 p.m. I'd like to start by acknowledging the Kaurna people as the traditional custodians of the land. City of Prospect acknowledges that we're on the traditional country of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains region, and we pay our respect to elders past, present and emerging. We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationships with the land, and we acknowledge that they are of continuing importance to the Kaurna people living today. And now the council pledge. We seek wisdom and understanding as we face the duties of our united task, praying for the peace and prosperity of our city. Okay, item number 2, on leave, there is nil. Item number 3, apologies, there are nil. Item number 4, declaration by members of a conflict of interest. Are there any conflicts of interest people would like to declare? Councillor Becker.
So perceived conflict is the suggested trial areas of FOGO is providing.
So it's a general or a material? So general, and you'll be staying and taking part in the debate?
Yes.
Okay, are there any other declarations of conflict of interest? I will declare a conflict of interest for item 10 point 10 points. Where are we? 10.11, the Australian Local Government Association National General Assembly, because I'll be attending and there'll be airfares and accommodation at play. Councillor Nelson.
Mayor, yes, I was just trying to find the agenda item, so I'll also declare a conflict of interest for 10.11, as I'm also happy to attend the event.
Okay, so can I ask the yeses and noes? Okay, can I ask the Deputy Mayor to take the chair, because I'll be leaving the room for the debate and the discussion on that item. Okay, no other declarations by members of conflicts of interest. Moving on to item 5 on the agenda, confirmation of minutes. There's a recommendation. So I have a mover. Councillor Nelson, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, that's fine.
A seconder, I saw Councillor Barnett. Would you like to speak to the motion?
No.
Is there any further discussion? You see any need to sum up?
No need.
Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much, everyone. Item number 6, public question time. So there's a maximum period of 15 minutes and a maximum time of 3 minutes per person, and I may allow for an extension of time if appropriate. Are there any questions from members of the public? No? Good, okay. Moving on to item 7, petitions, there are nil. Item number 8, deputations. We have a deputation from Kerry Wakefield and James Maybank wanting to talk about Churchill Road Pocket Park. I believe that there's a presentation to be made. For the purposes of the minutes, can I please have your name and address?
So James Maybank, 15 Devonport Terrace, OBU.
Thank you, James. So you've got 5 minutes. I'll give you a warning at 4 minutes. And then after that, there'll be an opportunity for members to ask questions. Over to you.
I didn't see you there, Mike. I thought you were absent. Hey, good evening, councillors, Mayor, City of Prospect. I'm here this evening to represent Churchill Greening and talk about this Churchill Pocket Park. Much has happened since I last presented in January. We took an idea and made it reality in record time. With Baz Sherwood and Kate Barrett providing their wisdom, and I received amazing support from my community, councillors, Mayor, and of course Lucy Hood bringing it home for the team. The pictures on the right are from the Pocket Park party under the bridge in 40+ degree heat. Since then, we've held 3 community gatherings plus a stall at the Prospect Community Market, thanks to Prospect Local Environment Group. Here is a collage of the community input received, which will be emailed to all councillors and Lucy Hood after this presentation. Here is a high-level summary of what the community had to say. They would like to see trees and plants native to the Adelaide Plains. This excludes trees with damaging roots like eucalyptus trees. They'd like to have a butterfly bee bird garden, so B&B, to increase pollination and utilising native plants, flowers, creating a lovely sensory space, sit and ponder. Nature play with little connected paths, old logs, stones, water play, and a fairy garden, of course. Food forest using permaculture design techniques such as swales to utilise the slope of the land to reduce water usage and control water flow, and a space for the community to grow food, learn new skills, meet people, contribute to a sense of community and connection to the environment. During these community gatherings, we decided to create a group called Churchill Green. Our aim is to strengthen community well-being and a sense of belonging by growing connections and biodiversity through the creation of an accessible, educational, sustainable gardening space for all. Our high-level objectives are to partner with the community, government, and local business, increase vegetation in the local area, create friendly green spaces, use sustainable gardening practices, create educational opportunities, and network with other gardening groups. Stakeholder benefits. The community has an opportunity to contribute to a sense of community, better health, physical well-being, and social inclusion and connection. Local government have an opportunity to reduce the impact on ratepayers, remain in control and produce a better visual outcome. And local business has an opportunity to connect with the community, support green initiatives, and help Churchill grow, prosper. Here is an example across Torrens Road where 3 entities come together to beautify an eyesore behind the wall on Torrens Road. Oakingham Greening are community gardeners in Charleston, volunteering to plant and maintain the proposed garden. They are a community-led group who plant, grow, maintain gardens through volunteering on council land for all to enjoy, but are not licensed, incorporated, or self-insured. Charles Sturt, through Jeanette Willoughby, will provide new irrigation, and the Bombay Bicycle Club will contribute $400 for 100 tube stock native plants from State Flora Nursery Appalachia to get them started.
Could have a minute to go, James.
Okay, thank you. So what would we like from council? To work with Churchill Greening to establish a framework or a blueprint to empower community gardeners to operate within the city of Prospect. Work with Churchill Greening to lay out a 5 to 10 year plan / roadmap to beautify the Pocket Park in alignment with community input beyond the proposed handover plan. Thank you for listening to this presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions if the Mayor will allow them.
James, 10 seconds to spare. The Mayor will indeed allow questions from the floor. Has any of the elected members got questions for James? I saw Councillor Barnett and then Councillor Standard.
My question is, thank you, for your deputation. I believe Perry has been involved as well. And I think a lot of the things that, words that we're seeing align quite closely with what council is on about. So, and the community grants that are specifically for this area too, so we'll be very keen to see what comes out as a result of that.
Thank you, councillor Barnett. Councillor Standard.
I have a question. How many residents or interested parties have you got in the group now?
So we got 5 people that are very like, I don't know, helping with the day-to-day, especially the admin type stuff. Whereas we possibly have maybe let's say 40 to 50 people that are like keen to just get out there and start gardening and planting and seeing things grow, but not as interested in, I guess, getting things up and running. It's a bit boring at this stage, but later down the track, then we're actually doing something that we like riding up.
Fantastic.
So yeah,
It's a good solid group of 5 of us support group.
yeah.
Yeah, really exciting stuff. Sorry.
No, you go.
Yeah, I'm really interested about some of the grant sources as well as Green Adelaide and places like that. Is there a desire or a need to be incorporated with things like insurance and all the rest of that? So I'm just sort of
So I know that's I don't know, up for debate, and I don't know a lot in this space, but I sort of go on what Jeanette Willoughby in Charles Sturt does, with Oakingham Green, where they're not incorporated. And people can just go there and garden, and they sort of go under the umbrella of council, where they're volunteers for council, and they sort of work with council and sort of agree what they're going to do.
I think insurance comes under then the volunteer umbrella possibly.
But yeah, I'd certainly, I'll pass the details of Jeanette on to you guys so that you can investigate further. She'd be happy to give her time to sort of explain how they operate, and if there's something that can work within the city of Prospect, either under how it's currently structured or if minor changes.
Councillor Group.
Thank you so much, James, and for your enthusiasm for this whole piece of work. It's fantastic. I'm interested in the community garden aspect of it, having been involved in the other one. What's your vision around how that works and how that's governed?
Oh, yeah, good question. Possibly when we get to that point, if it becomes like a traditional community garden, then we possibly have to be incorporated and become a group very much like Prospect Community Garden. But at this point, there's so much to do on the block. I'm not just focused on the community garden, but all the other aspects. And I'm very keen to see all the other things start to happen before we focus on the community garden.
Yeah, so that could be a little bit more complex, I suppose. And I guess we're just really presenting what community said from, the feelers that James has put out and before.
No.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'll give you like the complete, like raw information for you guys to analyze yourself. Like obviously I'll give my own summary, but I'll let you make sense of it yourself.
Yeah. I was just going to say, don't give up on that one around community garden. It's a great idea.
Yeah, I'm very keen on it, but yeah, I also realizing the complexities involved with operating them as well.
As I tell my children, every problem has a solution.
Yeah, that's very
Just pretty allowed to say there
Another
could be
quick question.
a different community garden model to our other one. Yeah, it's been discussed.
Thank you. Any further questions? If not, sorry,
Not
councillor
a
Trindle.
question, but yeah, I just want to say thank you for your presentation and all the effort you've put into it so far. And your hard work is, obviously shining in the amount of effort we've put towards it. So I just want to say thank you from the community. And
Thank you.
I'm really excited to work with you guys as well to make it happen.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no further questions, I'd like to thank the teams for a fantastic presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now I'd like to seek leave of the meeting to move item 10.5 to the start of the agenda, as that may be of interest to the deputies. Is that all I have to do? Seek leave? Oh. I have a motion. Motion. Okay, motion?
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay, yes. Okay. All those in favour? It's more than 2/3. Fantastic, thanks. Okay, so I will do that when we get to it. Item 9, questions without notice. Are there any questions without notice? Councillor De Backer.
Yes, thank you. Just in response to recent thefts of catalytic converters in the area, I was just wanting to ask through the chair if council members can be provided with regular up-to-date information in regards to police reports and perhaps a confidential briefing at one of our upcoming workshops. And this has happened in previous councils. Through the chair to the CEO.
CEO.
So through the mayor, in anticipation of this question, I thank you for giving me at least a little bit of warning of it today, councillor. I did call one of my contacts at SAPOL, who's indicated that they are able to provide what he referred to as qualitative data rather than quantitative data around trends and activity in our area. There's some challenges associated with how the city of Prospect as a local government area is divided between different local area commands, but these things can be overcome. And he's given me the opportunity to give him a call tomorrow to discuss options around that. And so I'll be doing that, and I will come back to you and to the rest of the members as soon as I can with some update on that.
Thank you, CEO. Are there any further questions without notice? Okay. Moving on to item 10, reports for decision. As mentioned before, we're going to bring forward item 10.5 to the start of the agenda. So item 10.5, Overham Rail Overpass Project, Churchill Road Land Parcel Update on pages 61 to 72 with a recommendation on page 61. Do I have a mover? Councillor Barnett would like to speak to the motion.
Yes, just briefly. Yeah, I think it's a very exciting opportunity that's been passed on our way. So, and as we've heard from the deputation, there are more exciting things to come. So, very pleased that we've been able to have this opportunity. And so I move the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Trindawin would you like to speak to the motion.
I'm just really happy that it will be something that we can all work together on the Westward. So
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything further to add that hasn't already been said? That being the case, I'd like to throw back to Councillor Barnett to sum up.
No, I'd just like to quickly move it.
Thank you. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thanks, everybody. So there won't be any further discussions regarding Overham related matters. So you're welcome to stay for the balance of the meeting, but we might be here till about 3 o'clock in the morning. We won't be offended if you choose to leave. Thank you. Let's now move to item 10.1. Before I do, just a reminder, we've got a pretty lengthy agenda tonight. So going down the path of moving and seconding and of course invite debate, but let's try to keep it to raising matters that haven't already been discussed when we're in debate. Item 10.1, third budget review 2022-2023 on pages 5 to 29 of your agenda with the recommendations on page 6. Do I have a mover? Councillor Group, would you like to speak to the motion?
Not at this stage.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Nelson, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I think it pretty much speaks for itself.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Having said that, Councillor Gray, your opportunity to sum up.
I'd love to. 5 minutes, right?
5 minutes, should you need 5 minutes?
Look, just say thank you again to the Director of all things corporate, City Corporate. A good comprehensive report. I think this will become even more important as we see the last quarter's budget review as well, and as we lead into our budget conversation. So just a big thank you to Ginny and her staff for preparing this for us tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Gray. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Item 10.2, Irish Heart Reserve upgrade budget and funding on pages 30 to 36 of your agenda with recommendations on page 30. Do I have a mover? Ready, set, go. Councillor Nelson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Look, just very briefly, just to speak to Sam and his team for doing a fantastic job to bring those costs down. Originally from the first budget price, so I think what we've got now is a very good budget. Obviously, it's always gone a little bit over, but I think the revised plans now look exceptionally good. Recommend everyone to endorse it.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Do I have a second to Councillor Tweenwin?
Just again, Councillor Nelson's, and thank you to the team for bringing back the report to us in such a short period of time. I'm so glad that the design wasn't scaled back or compromised in any way, because that would really disappoint the community members. Really excited about this upgrade, and I can't wait to see it happening in Northfield. I hope you all support the motion, all parts of the recommendation.
Thank you, Twee. Do I have any further discussion? Councillor Backer.
Again, just thank you to the team for providing the light mapping. So I think that was highlighted that was one of the desirable outcomes for local users. And I know we had scaled back the number of lights, but certainly the light spread seems adequate. So thank you for providing that information. I'll be supporting the motion.
Great. Any further discussion? If not, we'll circle back to Councillor Nelson to sum up.
I think there's been enough thank yous, and well done to Sam, Sam's team for coming back also so quickly. I think it was great to turn that around so fast. So well done.
Great. Okay, let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Item 10.3 Churchill Road Drainage Upgrade Stage 1 project on pages 37 to 49 of your agenda with the recommendations on page 37. Do I have a mover? So Councillor Barnett first. Councillor Barnett, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, we've had extensive workshops on this matter, and had the different scenarios explained, and had lots of questions answered. So I think we've got to this point. It's extremely important that we do this work, and I think most of council has arrived at the option 2, which really assists more the flooding that has had some pretty bad effects down near Charles Street and down that end. So I'm more than happy that all due diligence has been done, and I thank the staff and that were involved with doing such a tremendous job on such a big project, which we will be having around with us for many years yet. So I commend the motion to council.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett. Do I have a second to Councillor Group?
Thank you, Mayor. There are some really scary numbers in this report, and I think that reflects that we've got a really scary issue to deal with in terms of our stormwater management. So I'll absolutely be supporting the motion. And the recommendations in the motion in the report. I just want to make that point though, that this is about investing for the long-term prospect, and this costs money, and you can't have one without the other, and that's the reality. So I think as we get into budget season, not just this year, but the next 2 or 3 years as well, we are absolutely going to have to be disciplined to put money towards a project such as this one. So a huge amount of work has gone into it, but I just think it's worth making the point they are scary numbers, they're big numbers, but they're necessary numbers, and we need to do this work, and particularly for the residents in the western part of our city, who have in the past found themselves in ankle-deep water during 1 in 50 and 1 in 100 floods or rainfall events. This would be a very welcome sight, I suspect.
Thank you, Councillor Groot. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Okay, I'll then circle back to Councillor Barnett for a summary.
No.
Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Moving right along, item 10.4, Maynooth Road Pocket Park on pages 50 to 60 of your agenda with the recommendations on page 50. Do I have a mover? Councillor Group.
I will move this one. This is really exciting. And I certainly will be supporting the motion tonight. This has been a great example in a couple of things. One is political promise being made and delivered on very quickly, and I think that's a fantastic thing for democracy in the process of elections and people getting elected into positions rather. I think this is a really good use of the land. I've seen a number of different proposals for this site, which have ranged from the sublime to the ridiculous, and I think this is a really nice outcome in terms of a pocket park. I hope it gets used well. It's a funny location to have a park at one level, But I think that greening and the softening, particularly for the residents that live behind, who have often expressed their concern to me about what goes on that site. This is a great outcome. It's also good that we've listened to public consultation, particularly in term, or DIT has listened to public consultation and made some adjustments as a result of that as well. And I think that's a really important point to make as well, that the relationship we have with the department at the moment is a very positive one. Hasn't always been that way. And I think they've been very collegiate in working with us on this as opposed to working against us on it. So I think it should be recognised the good work that the department's done, and also a local member for Adelaide for her support of this particular piece of work as well. It's certainly something that people have talked to me about both in an election campaign and out of it. So I'm looking forward to ground being broken fairly soon and it being completed later this year.
Thank you, councillor Group. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Holland.
Well, not much more to add, but it's a project that looks like it's covered the bases, moving ahead nicely, pretty much what Marcus had to say.
Sorry.
I support it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Barnett.
Very quickly, I think councillors and our executive leadership team and Lucy Hood and member of Adelaide. So I've just put forward a suggestion, which is only a suggestion, when we get to the part about the section report about naming the new pocket park. So that will be in consultation with the council staff and member of Adelaide, Lucy Hood, and I'm hoping we'll continue our tradition of having a Ghana name. And I've just suggested a name with a historical historical focus. So yeah, that I certainly support. Motion.
Thank you, councillor Barnett. Any further discussion? Okay, councillor Group, would you like to sum up?
No, of course I can't add extra content to a summing up statement, but
Or ask, you can ask a question.
or I can't ask a question that you said to me. Yeah, I thought so. Look, just really supportive. The thing I do want to say though is that this is the first time we've had a net increase in green space in Prospect for some time. We're at one of the lowest rates of green space per capita in our city. We're always looking for more green space. This is a great result from that perspective as well. And I do look forward from the naming perspective that Councillor Barnett raised, us having a good hard look at what that's going to look like, and I presume that will come back. It does say it's going to come back to council, or further information will be provided to a future council meeting. I'm hoping we'll get some level of influence in that decision as well, particularly given our dual naming policy that we have in the city. So look forward to that coming back, and I support the motion. Hope everyone does too.
Thank you, councillor Group. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Okay. Item 10.6, weekly food and organics collection trial, pages 73 to 81 of your agenda, with the recommendations on page 73. Do I have a mover? Councillor Group.
If I go all the way, I say, I think this is a really, really exciting step forward for us. Not everyone's going to be happy with it. We know that. Some people are going to be concerned about it. For some people, it's going to change. But I think the report speaks for itself in terms of the benefits that this is going to present to the senior prospect. I'm very excited about it. I think it's a great trial, great opportunity for us to really challenge the status quo about how we deal with waste, particularly weekly landfill bins. I don't see a downside to it. And I hope those people who might not be wanting to participate in the trial take up the opportunity of having someone come and talk to them and understand what it is we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it, but before they make a decision. It's, ultimately there was an out clause for residents should they want it. I think that'll compromise the trial significantly, but I hope they participate in that process of going and having a conversation with East Waste and understanding why we're doing what we're doing. So I certainly support the motion, and hopefully it gets support around the table tonight.
Thank you, councillor Group. Do I have a seconder, councillor Barnett?
Yes, certainly some residents during our council election and even prior to that have asked, about they prefer to have a bigger green bin, and to be able to recycle more and all that. So I'm very pleased that we've had this report. There's a lot of good information in here. And if the trial, hopefully, will be successful and we'll be able to not only save money, but increase, our organic waste, as well. So I think there are quite a few positives in there. And, support it.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett. Any further discussion? Councillor Group, then Councillor Nelson. Sorry, Councillor Mark Standard. How to get you two guys next up? I got the mark right. It's $5.
I think it's a great initiative. It seems to be a lot of support up in the community for trialing this, and I think it'll be successful. The more tools and the more solutions that we give to people, the easier it'll be. And the more options. It's never a one size fits all thing. So the more options we can give people, the more we can get people on side. Well, I think it'll be successful. I think it'll be good for us, good for everyone in the end.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Nick. I was going back, as I was reading the agenda, I was going back through my notes of the workshop we had with East Waste, and just recalled that I did ask a question where we were advised that during the trial results were relatively live, and we could in fact request monthly reports from East Waste during the trial. Just wondering if it's possible to make an addendum to point 3 to include monthly reports during the trial, just so we can remain agile to make any adjustments to the trial as we go.
So you want monthly reports to council or just
Monthly
through the
reports to
CEO
council.
update or something?
Whichever way they decided to do it. I just remember that East Waste did say that the results they were getting, that they actually track these things and that was going to be live, and they could provide us, whether that be through the CEO or through council, with monthly updates during the trial.
So through the mayor, we can certainly do that. I mean, if the data is available, Sam, the data should be available. Any concerns with that?
To varying degrees, there will be 3 audits that will be undertaken and 3 ones during and one at the end in terms of actual physical audits of rubbish. There'll be some data with respect to waste diversion that we can track, but there'll be different levels of quality of data. So there'll be some of that more auditing of actual waste stream that will come in at different times through the trial, and then will be the actual quantity of diversion which we can track.
So I think
a report for the CO update is probably more relevant, and then we'll have a report to close out the trial. Really, if there's significant concern or issue with respect to the trial, it requires us to recast our thinking, which is highly unlikely. We'll report back to the council.
Okay, happy with that.
Happy with that? Any further discussion? From the chair, I'm a little jealous that I'm not in the test area. Looking forward to putting my green bin out once a week. I think we talked a lot recently on the weekend about evidence-based decision making, and the reporting that we're going to get is going to be a perfect example of that. We should better track very closely how we're doing, and it's great to see Prospect being used as a test site. This is the sort of thing that's great to be recognised. It's great for our brand, and I look forward to seeing the results. Councillor Group, would you like to sum up?
Just to say that I am in the trial site and may have some small capacity on occasion if you need a branch dealt with.
Off your hedge that
I'd be happy to
that
cut my hedge as well.
you.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mayor. It's in the contract.
I
I would just point out that what we're moving in recommendation 3 is slightly different to what's been published, just by 2 words. So I just point that I don't think it's material, but it's just probably worth noting that. So section 3 and what we had published had the words by date, which don't appear on the recommendation on the screen. So it's a very, very small change, but just want to point that out. That's not material.
So through the mayor, the challenge there, I think, will be, Sam, do we have the dates for those audits yet?
Through the chair, we just removed the words with by date. So effectively, we'll bring the results of the trial back to the council afterwards, and the references to respect to citywide rollout. The date referred to citywide rollout. I didn't want to preface that we'd actually progress with that. We'll bring the trial back and have to do the rest of the citywide rollout. At that point, the report reference, then that might apply.
I should point out I have no issue with that. I just thought it was worth pointing that out, just for clarity for the person watching at home. Apart from that, I'm very excited to roll on September. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Group. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Item 10.7, saturated steam trial on pages 82 to 84 of your agenda with the recommendations on page 82. Do I have a mover? Councillor Barnett, off
Yes,
the mark.
certainly very pleased about this follow-up to the original motion about to look into this. And I thank the director for following up and for providing us with this information. I know that from our community survey results, environmental things are rated very highly with our residents, and I know this was of particular concern in the media during the recent council election. So I'm glad that we are able to have this come to us, and I commend it, particularly when there will be completing works using the steam unit have a number of benefits, including reduction in staff time spent on roof management, which in turn can be spent on other tasks in the public realm, reduction in manual labour associated with hand pulling roofs and playgrounds, which is our current practice, and quality improvements in relation to weed management across an area. So filling reeds rather than extracting this, removing the chance of leaving the roots behind in the soil. Members will have read the report. There's a whole lot of other benefits of the treatment at the bottom of page 82. So I'm very happy to move this.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Holland.
And the guys support because the trial on all those points, pretty much it's really be positive, I think. And we go through it and give it a go. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have any further discussion? Councillor Green.
Sorry, I can't help myself. Did staff consider the use of goats?
Through the chair. CEO.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Full stop.
Okay, thank you. Forgotten about that. Anything else of a similar important nature that hasn't been discussed already?
I did have a serious question, if possible. I noticed which actually. Let me come back to that. I noticed this being called a trial, yet it's actually been said that a number of councils have trialled it successfully. I'm just wondering what councils have trialled it, and if it is successful, why we're still calling it a trial and not adopting it.
CEO.
Mr. Delaney?
Through the chair, we have quite a more isolating the former council to see other councils trying this, but I think it's certainly one of them, and using it in their playgrounds. We're proposing just to move into this significant recurrent budget expense that comes with this, and effectively at the time we believe it's close to $40,000 across all our playgrounds. We'd like to actually understand the effectiveness of steam in terms of its use. We've got a contractor that's been engaged, rather than go full steam full steam ahead with respect to a full rollout. I mean, that's plausible, it's possible. Councillor Nelson, we didn't think it was the right thing to do, and we wanted to test it in our environment and see how effective it is in terms of that regeneration and whether or not the frequency that we've identified as 4 weekly is going to be sufficient.
So just to add to that, again, this is only a few parks, and it is only for a finite period, 6 months, Mr. Delaney.
And then we'll bring a report back to council, but we can make a call ahead of effectively the next budget.
So the commitment, obviously, for all our parks across the entire financial year would have been more substantial, which is why we've recommended this trial.
Thank you. Any further questions? If not, Councillor Barnett, would you like to sum up?
Just, I think it's a fabulous little trial, and I just hope that I know there are certainly some residents who complained about long and hard about this. They're telling me they're going to be very pleased that this goes through.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Item 10.8. Draft asset management plan summary. That was a summary. Consultation outcomes on pages 85 to 292 of your agenda with recommendations on page 85. Do I have a mover? Councillor Group, would you like to speak to the motion?
Look, this is another one of those reports tonight with big numbers and big impact and significant consideration that will need to be given by council budgets in future years. I won't go through all the detail, we've all read it. I think we've had a couple of false starts with this one over some time. It's good to have it finally before us. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Barnett, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, look, this is an extremely important part of and a big swag of what council actually does, and a lot of it's you know, in the legislative area that we are responsible for, and we do have to be responsible. And I think some of us were a bit uneasy that a few years back previously, we were thought this, you know, had a bit more of a handle on all of this. But with our new staff and director and all their skills and experience, I think have far more confidence this time. And I just thank the staff that have been involved in putting this together. It's a huge piece of work, and we're in it for the long term. And so I think it's very essential that we have to do this, and that I commend it to council.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett. Do I have any further discussion? Councillor Backer.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. Yeah, look, it's always challenging with consultations on the document. I know we got 6 formal responses and we had 60, but I understand the challenges around this. But I'd probably just maybe through the chair, just to the director, in page 87, you kind of acknowledged that there hasn't been on the screen of director easier. Overall, the council did not receive overwhelming support for the plan in the current format. However, many of the concerns raised have been identified and detailed in the extensive improvement program that developed alongside the plan. I was just wondering, through the chair, could the director perhaps talk to that?
Mr. Delaney?
Yeah, with the chair. As you identified, Alison, it's really hard to get consultation feedback. Gas management plans are not sexy items. They don't necessarily hit people in the face. In terms of approach, directly impacting them. It's something that I've certainly pondered over my whole worked on throughout my career and invested enormous amount of time and energy, and ended up with 3 responses in the past. So I'm pretty pleased that we actually managed to get 6 in this space. Plus an additional one with the extra consultation. In terms of the improvement plan, as I say, we're at a lower end of maturity in our asset management framework. I think we certainly have staff and we acknowledge that. This council and the previous council committed to significant funds in that space, but $150,000 allocated this year, plus I believe it's $120,000 next year. Continue our auditing to effectively lift that standard. So the improvement plan is about lifting our standard. Along that way will be a further consideration of the condition of assets, and this council will need to make a decision as to where it sets that benchmark. Effectively, it's a level of service discussion and decision in regard to that condition, and we'll be workshops with members that we move forward in this journey across into the asset classes, to really understand what that means from a financial perspective.
And just to that, and I congratulate you on the decision-making matrix for the earlier item in regards to the flood options. I'm sure there'd be a probably similar matrix for making decisions around assets. But I have got a question around the local heritage listed stables in St Helens Park. Is that being considered as part of the commission assessment? Through the chair.
Mr. Delaney?
Chair, yes, in the current round of commission assessments coming out from it's been prepared at the moment, currently assessing tenders. It is within the scope of that project to collate condition data on our building structures, in which the St Helens Coach House is one element.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Backer. Any further discussion? I'll head back to Councillor Group to sum up.
Happy with the motion? No need to sum up.
Thank you. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against, carried unanimously. Item 10.9, EHA draft annual business plan and budget 23-24, pages 293 to 320 in your report with recommendations on page 293. Do I have a mover? Councillor Barnett.
Yes. Yes, I think it's, you know, a lot of work goes into this at the EHA and it's board level that, so I think just interesting to note that although there's a slight increase on our proportion City of Prospect is paying, that some of those things are that our Prospect Clinic here in the ground floor, there's increased promotion going to happen with that. I think that in the budget process, like many other authorities and ignoring council, that there's an increase up to 77,500 for employee costs. And also there's, you know, strains of put on the materials, cost of contracts, materials of 123,000 gone up. So Eastern Health Authorities not immune to some of these cost pressures. But overall in all, I think we still, as a smaller council, in the grouping and the metropolitan area, get good value for money. This, as one of the previous investigations has shown. So I commend the motion to council.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Green, would you like to speak to the motion?
Well, I say EHA to EHA because I think it's fantastic to have it here. It plays a really important role in our community, and we know that from activity over the last 12 months or so. I just have one question, and I'm sure I should know the answer to this, and I don't think I found it in the report. Our contribution this financial year decreased by almost 5%. Can anyone explain maybe why that happened? I'm just kind of curious more than anything else that it's decreased. Even with the increase this year, we're still below the 21-22 budget figure. So I don't think there's an issue about the numbers. I'm just curious as to why it decreased so markedly this year.
So yeah.
Mr. Pearce, do you know the answer to that question?
No, I have to take up no.
There was a reason, I can't remember it.
Okay.
And it's a simple reason.
Yeah, I'm sure I've been told before. I just can't remember it either.
We'll
So
take it on notice.
anyway,
We'll come back
yes.
to you.
It's not sorry, I'm just aware that you've got another director appointed.
Oh, sorry, who's Scott? Mr. McCluskey, sorry, from the floor.
Through the chair, related to the way in which contributions were calculated as of the last 2 years, so relative to the size and activity level of the account, the contribution rates will change and that the prospects actually increase.
Okay. I look forward to a sharp increase in future years. But I look, thank you for that through the chair. I support the motion. I think they provide a really good service and a very necessary one.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, I'll head back to Councillor Barnett to sum up.
No, I think the report was quite you know, full of information. So I commend the motion.
Thank you. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against, carried unanimously. Item 10.10, Eastern Health Authority Charter Review, pages 321 to 407. We report with recommendations on page 321. Do I have a mover, Councillor Barnett?
Yes, I think there are, you know, it has to be a unanimous decision amongst all our member councils of Eastern Health Authority. So in some of the previous documents, you will see there's been a to-in and a fro-in and you know, trying to get to the consensus. So I think all in all, that I just recommend that we go ahead with the charter review as in our report. And as I explained to one of the directors, Mr. Pierce, that I think there's nothing to die in a ditch for, basically, as far as prospects concerned. So I think we're reaching closer and closer. So hopefully, when we'll get the response back from our other member councils, that we'll be able to finally go ahead with this charter review.
Yeah.
So let's hope we're one step closer to that after tonight. So again, I commend the recommendation.
Thank you, councillor Barnett. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Green. Would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Do I have anything else from the floor other than what's already been said? That being the case, councillor Barnett, would you like to sum up?
I think that's consent.
Thank you. Let's finish the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Item 10.11. So myself and councillor Nelson will leave, and I'll ask the deputy mayor to do his best to carry on. See what I can.
Okay, 10.11, recommendations before you. We've already got a nomination from Mayor Larwood. We will need to insert the name of councillor Nelson. I'll make the assumption that councillor Nelson's departure means that he is interested in going. I would just pause for a moment though to just ask anyone else who might be interested prior to voting on the matter.
Can I just make a statement?
Probably not. Sorry. No, okay. But I will call for someone to move the motion. You could maybe make a statement as part of that, and if it was related to other people possibly wanting to nominate, it wouldn't be too late.
I'll move the motion. Yeah, look, I think I'd like to move this because I think it's a great opportunity for any elected member, but certainly new or returning elected members to attend the conference. Now you can attend in person or you can attend virtually. So if you've got commitments in Adelaide, you can Zoom in. So obviously the majority of the cost to council is actually going to Canberra. However, it's a learning experience. So certainly this helps, I think, you and your constituents, because you get to network and you get to sort of meet other people from other councils, and especially some of that big strategic stuff that we've been talking about. So, you know, sort of garnering the best of what's happening out there and seeing what's the best practice out in local government. So if you haven't considered it and you'd either like to go to Canberra or Zoom in from the comfort of your home or office, and often these virtual sessions as well, you can do register, and sometimes they're on demand. So if you've registered, you can watch them at your leisure. So if you haven't considered it, think about it. I'm going to move the motion.
Thank you very much. Someone to second the motion. Thank you, councillor Hall. Just speak to.
No, nothing great to say. I can support the whole idea.
Yeah.
Sending people across.
Thank you. Any other commentary from anyone? Can I just from the acting chair's perspective, just reiterate what councillor De Backer said in terms of the importance of this conference, but also what you get out of it individually. And this year might not be the right year, but you've got another 3 ahead of you, and there'll be conferences pretty much guaranteed for the next 3 years. I would certainly ask you to think about whether you would like to go in future years as well. I've been before. It's a really good opportunity to, as councillor De Backer said, to sort of just network with others and see local government on a much larger stage and much more significant stage. So not this year, obviously we have our 2 nominees now, but think about it for future years. Councillor Backer, would you like to sum up? Thank you. I'll take the vote. All those in favour? Those against? It is carried unanimously.
Okay. Okay, item 10.12, local government reform updates as of May 2023 on pages 433 to 446 of your agenda with recommendations on page 433. Do I have a mover? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, obviously, yeah, it's, good to have reforms and get things up to date. There's some interesting ones there about, liability of vehicle owners and expiation of certain offences. So, cross fingers, haven't yet had, needed an opportunity to be worried about something like that. And yeah, I just think it's also interesting that the local government association with the member is assisting with the model draft model policies. So just another example of membership assists us. So I just move it that way.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Nelson, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I think obviously we've got a lot of faith in our CEO, and I have no problem with leaving that to continue.
Thank you. Any further discussion? That being the case, Councillor Barnett, do you see any need to sum up? Okay. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Item 10.13, review of finance policies, pages 447 to 458 of your agenda with recommendations on page 447. Do I have a mover? Try again.
So moved.
Do I have a mover? Councillor Green, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, again, one of these necessary pieces of work that we need to do, and there's a bit of work that goes into this. I was particularly interested in reading about the street numbering policy, because I know there has been a few little issues in the past year or two on some streets. So it's I wasn't actually aware we had a policy in that detail, so that was a good bit of information for myself, I must admit. Otherwise, I just commend the motion to you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, again, I'm interested about the street numbering policy as well. I'm just wondering if there's something in the policy that makes sure that owners of these properties ensure that there's a big enough street number so you can actually see it when you're going past.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Okay, Councillor Green, I'm sure you're keen to sum up this motion.
Well, I did want to talk a bit more about the street number policy, but it's a late now.
Anything new that hasn't been said?
Oh, that's true. No, then which has a one.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, though. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against, carried unanimously. Item 10.14, discretionary policy review 2023, pages 459 to 468 of your agenda. Recommendations on page 459. Do I have a mover? Councillor Green.
Oh, what a
Hear from
surprise. Yeah, no, look, I'm a bit of a policy person, so I really like any motions on policy. I'd certainly commend the motion to the chamber. I was really pleased to see the discipline that went into this in terms of what do we need to keep, what can we get rid of, what do we need to review slightly. I was pleased to see the policies around traffic will be held off until we've done the traffic management plan. And I have to say, just from a personal perspective, I'm very I'm pleased to see the communication protocol policy being revoked. So I think that was a policy that the previous council brought in, or might have been one before that. I think to a degree unnecessarily, but it's good to see that that's been reviewed, and it's actually not the right policy for now, this chamber of this council. So I think that's again really good discipline from the CEO and his staff to bring that to us. I certainly commend the motion to you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Nelson.
Mimicking as per Councillor Green, I think it's very good to see the document little bit the same in the fact I'm a bit of a policy Nazi. I like to have policies and systems and procedures, so it's very, very, very good to see the review.
Thank you. Do I have any further discussion? Councillor Barnett.
Quickly, thanks to our staff for getting on top of this, because it does, well, I guess word has amused me. Quite frankly, when I've gone to look for a policy and it's like about, 10 years hasn't been looked at and all the rest of it. So I believe was our governance officer. So thank you for getting on top of this and making sure it's all getting done.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
It's just a little bit anomaly, like, thank you again for the work that's been put in. And I notice sometimes the policy links for the public sometimes show 404s. So I'm assuming not all of these, but I'll go home and test them tonight. And if I find any, I'll let you know.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, Councillor Group, would you like to sum up? Great summary. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Item 10.15, legislative policy reviews, May 2023, on pages 469 to 520 of your agenda, with recommendations on page 469. Do I have a mover?
So moved.
Councillor Group. Would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I'll wait to summing up.
For the vote. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Nelson.
No, I'm fine, thanks.
Is there any further discussion? That being the case, I'm looking forward to your summary, Councillor Group.
I just want to thank Councillor Nelson for his contribution and agree with him.
Couldn't have put it better myself. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Okay, item 10.16, Village Heart parking consultation update, pages 521 to 567. Recommendations on page 521. Now, I was thinking about recommending that we suspend meeting procedures for 20 or so minutes if we should need to. I'd like to test the waters on that. Do I have a mover? And a seconder? Sorry? 25. And we're looking for 2/3 majority. All those in favour? Okay, that looks like 235. So 20 minutes takes us to 8:26. Okay, so we're moving into informal meeting procedures where we can discuss this. Who wants to go first?
Any questions first?
Any questions? Councillor Nelson.
So to start, I think if I recall correctly, I was going back to my notes last night from the workshop we had, and from best recollection of my notes that I took, I think those options were the ones that we all selected and all agreed upon and all discussed. Yes, there's obviously, I think there will be some public backlash in a couple of those. They won't be 100%, but I think there's certainly the best options that were available.
Yep. Anybody else? Questions, taking comments? Councillor Group.
Just a couple of things briefly. I was really interested in the staff survey. It had some really interesting information in it. One of the things that sort of seemed to be a bit of a theme was the working from home component that obviously came up from staff here. As much as I can ask this question, does the council have a policy around staff working from home? Is that a thing that still happens post-COVID?
So yeah,
So through the mayor, yes.
Yeah.
It was something that we put a lot of work into over the past 12 months, and we implemented it. Ms. Moon, how long ago? 8-9 months ago now was the modern workplace protocol. Mr. DiMaria? September last year.
Yeah.
We've had excellent take up. The policy is modelled on a document that we had trialed and tested pretty substantially at a former employer I worked at in New South Wales.
Mm-hmm.
It included detailed procedures on things like home workspace, safety checks, and also regular reviews of these arrangements to ensure that they were working from a performance standpoint, but also from a team building and team cohesion standpoint. I could wax lyrical about them, but the point is we have what I believe to be an excellent process in place now that's popular with staff, has some take up. A lot of staff still prefer to come into the office, and obviously we prefer to have all staff in the office some of the time so we can have team cohesion sustained. But yes, we do a good process. I'm happy to share it with members if you'd like to see them.
No, thank you. That's good because I think it addresses some of what was discussed in there. I think it was interesting to see that the timing of when the back car park fills up and when it doesn't, and I think a natural assumption it's always staff when it's clearly not. So I think it was good that the report talks about that. The only thing I was going to ask Mayor is whether it could be taken in parts. I'm not sure I'm going to support the fees and charges, and this is because I have some views around permit parking, which if no one else, Councillor Backer certainly knows my views on it. So we've been talking about it for a long time around permits. So I understand to a degree the rationale for the permit parking charges. I'm just not sure I totally agree with it enough to vote for it tonight. So I'm just wanting to take not the A, B's and C's, but just the numbers in parts.
Happy to take it in parts. Okay, any further discussion? Councillor Tweenawin.
Just these stats around stuff, that they would consider changing their mode of travel, to come into work. And, there was mention of, like, if there was secure storage. I just thought that number was really high, and that I commend, the action that took up was in working, building better storage space for the people who want to ride into it. So yeah, that was really good, and that was really interesting to read, and that there was action following the survey. So it feels as though that they've been heard and they've been listened to, and you are doing something. So really commend that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Sorry, Councillor Barnett.
Yes, I think I can see there, particularly from some residents of Vine Street, that they had some issues with the previous investigation and reports, and so I hope that that satisfies some of their concerns, and particularly again been pointed out about the staff survey and feedback. So this is a public report, so I hope that they have read it and taken note of that, because that was a big criticism at the time. And also I've lost it now, so sorry. Similar with Myrtle Street as well, and there was Rose as well, particularly about the disability parking and things like that. So knowing where some of these concerns have been coming from, I'm hoping that will be satisfactory, and that we've listened to the concerns that have been raised in this reporting. So I think that's all I can say. That I felt that I was ready to support what we've got this time.
Thank you. Okay, any Councillor Trindwin?
I've spoken to Sam about this before, about surveys and how, like, most of these, the most we've got was 21%. One of them was 11%. So I feel like the response rate is really low to, I said that this should be a better way for us to consult, so that we can get like a higher response rate from the residents, because I just feel like it's not a really true representation of what most of these residents want. And I've said myself as a business owner, when I've been given a survey, I'd start doing it and then I forget about it and I completely miss the cutoff. So yeah, there's like 14% and then 11% response rates for some of these surveys, which I find is really, really low. So it's not a really good representation. And this is like trying to resolve some of the issues on these streets, but in the bigger picture, it's not really resolving the parking issue that we have in the area. So yeah, I know these are like little steps that we can look at, but the report says the survey suggests anything below 85% suggests there isn't really an issue, but it's at 70% at the moment. So that's suggesting that there will be an issue in the near future. So I think we really need to, you know, with the ITP, you should look at that to plan ahead for the issues that will arise very soon. And with Sunny's and Rosemont opening, like probably later on this year, I just know the issues going to get bigger and bigger. So yeah, I really, and like with the resident survey, 30% satisfaction for parking, like this is something we really, really need to focus on.
Certainly. Okay, any further discussion? Councillor Dubecker.
Yeah, there's a lot of work gone into it, and I think recommend the staff are putting it together, and I take on Councillor Wayne's point that, you know, it's always a challenging confrontation. I know we've had several open workshops and several discussions over the last few years. I suppose the consolation is you never get parking solutions right. It doesn't matter what you do. But I'm cognizant we've got two major developments going to go on in the village heart, and we need to give the staff the confidence and the tools to manage the traffic as it is. And my consolation again is that these can also be converted. So I'm making a question through the chair. If we need to revisit it, what will be the limitations on re-looking at this, say, in about 12 months' time? Is that possible?
CEO.
Cost and staff resourcing, Elena.
Well, understanding that.
Yeah, through the chair. It's just a process of consultation with that affected community. So certainly take the point. I think the positive with respect to the figures, and thank you, Catherine, in respect to that. The positive in that is that we weren't overwhelmed with negative responses or consultation because effectively we've got it right in terms of the options that have been presented, and generally you find that the people that are less impacted don't generally bother putting a survey result in. But effectively, there was still a significant quantum of responses of those really impacted community. You see there's quite varied responses. There's enough of them to draw a conclusion. We workshop that and then consent. So there was general sort of alignment in the thinking in that space. Most the recommendations are in line with what we discussed in the workshop. There would be further consultation. So the point I'm working to Councillor Baker is that this will push traffic in different directions. Myrtle Street, Olive, are likely to be the pick up some additional traffic, and we need to keep an eye on that. There is capacity in those streets to take some additional traffic, but we're going to need to do some further occupancy surveys, and there might be a little bit of pressure points coming from members of those streets because of additional traffic and parking. But it's a difficult ecosystem to manage, and there's only so much we can do.
So I think that reiterates that this process is good. So it's never perfect, but it is a structure, and I think, and certainly some of the operational guidelines, if that helps your staff, because I think the challenge we had in the last term of council, we were continually getting petitions to council from aggrieved residents and business owners, and so we should. So I think this is the first step in what will be a kind of during our 4-year term, a discussion of solutions and management of parking. This is Village Heart, but obviously there's other areas around the city that will address the ITP. So thank you for the work, and I'll be supporting the motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Barnett?
Yeah, I suddenly remembered what the comment I was going to make, and it was about the opportunity at corner of Daphne Street and Prospect Road. I just witnessed only a couple of weeks ago about a car doing a U-turn travelling north to south, and suddenly deciding to make a U-turn there and nearly collided, with me and another car coming down and nearly knocked over a pedestrian. So I think it's a great opportunity for when the roadworks are being done there, that gets looked at. So I commend the staff for being on the ball with that aspect.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, then I'll bring this back in the session now. Oh, sorry, one more from councillor Bennett.
Sorry, I was just wondering if councillor Group, you know, he was concerned about the thing.
Mm.
So you're not going to raise it.
Oh, look, I understand why
So we
people be
understand.
charged. I just don't philosophically believe we should be charging them. I think most people are going to vote for it, but I'm not going to step amendment or anything. I just want to voice my disagreement slightly with that. So, you know, happy to leave it with that.
Thank you.
And as mentioned before, happy to take it in parts.
Thank you.
Okay, let's bring this back in the session. Just got a quick question. So taking it in parts, we need a mover and second and vote actually.
Exactly.
Yep. Okay, so just confirming that we're taking it in parts, so we need a mover and a seconder and then vote on each of the 5 items there. So item number 1, do we have a mover? Councillor Wynne, would you like to speak to the motion? Do we have a seconder? Councillor Group, any further discussion?
Sorry, did I have that all?
Sorry, you did.
Oh, sorry, okay, sorry, I just want to speak more generally to the whole motion, and I might do it here rather than doing it each time you call for a mover or a seconder. I just want to pick up something just more formally, something that Councillor Wynne raised, which is around the consultation process, and hearing the director's explanation certainly makes a lot of sense. But this has been an issue in local government for a long time, that we spend lots of effort going out for consultation, we get very few numbers. We then start talking about percentages like 50% of people support this and 70% of people support that, but it's 70% and 50% of 3 and 4s. And it is a problem for us. And I think to a degree, I would agree with the director that if it's not broken, people are telling us, and that's a tick. But I think I might ask this as a question, but I believe the consultation policy is coming back to us in the next 6 months or so. Can I ask that as a question to the chair?
So again, CEO.
Mr. Taylor?
Why is it sky blue? No, I was asking through the chair whether the consultation, I thought I heard somewhere that the consultation policy is coming back to us for review in the next 6 months or so.
Through the chair, that is correct. Yes, it's one of the ones that I need to come back.
Okay. So I think it'd be really good for us to challenge ourselves about how we deal with this issue. The second point I want to make is that this is not a set and forget motion. And I think to Councillor Thacker's point, this is such a fluid issue. And pushing traffic into any street or away from any street is going to create other blockages and other concerns and elation in other streets. I just think we need to keep on top of that and keep monitoring what this looks like, which is clearly going to happen. But as an elected member body, also just being aware of that we need to maybe just for ourselves, give ourselves in check that we want to continually look at what is happening with our traffic management in this space, and also in the context of an ITB coming in. So I commend this particular recommendation.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Yeah, Marcus.
I was taking it.
Oh, sorry. Any further discussion? If not, forgotten who the mover was. Sorry, Trin. So you need to sum up?
Yeah, just what Councillor Groot said, yes. I'd like to commend Sam and his team for the extensive work they've done and the reporting. Yeah, there was a lot of information and you know, I'm not saying you're not doing a good job at all. I'm just, you know, obviously my frustrations are with the parking issues. But your work and what was the traffic engineer? Kelsey's work, yes. She's done an amazing job with the consultation.
Thank you. Okay, let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against, carried unanimously. 10.16.2, we have a mover. That's the back. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Not so much to say again, presentation. So it'd be great to have some feedback. I certainly reiterate the Rose Street decision with 3 hours. Thanks for considering that. So thank you for that in the consultation. I'd like to support the motion.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Nelson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of talk about the consultation. I agree, there's never a right way or anything else to do it. I think it is important to remember that when somebody doesn't like something, they'll tell one person. When somebody loves it, sorry, when somebody hates it, they'll tell 10. So I think we're only going to get those who have an issue as respondents, unless we actually go door to door. So that may be an option that we look forward to. But I think certainly for this, when we looked at it during the workshop, that the options that were selected there were certainly the best options at the time that were offered. So again, I commend the motion.
Okay, any further discussion? Councillor De Backer, would you like to sum up? All those in favour? Against, carried unanimously. 10.16.3, do I have a mover?
So moved.
Councillor Group, would you like to speak to the motion? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Nelson, would you like to speak to the motion? Any further discussion? Councillor Group. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against, carried unanimously. 10.16.4, do I have a mover? Councillor De Backer, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, look, I'll speak to this one. Look, I know, residential parking permits are not popular. However, I think if everyone gets a permit to the purpose of having parking controls at all. So, you know, it's never popular. But certainly, you know, you look at, say, Unley or Norwood or something, everywhere in their main shopping districts has turnaround. And the thing is, we've really tied some of this now to planning and design code for, you know, looking at the availability of off-street parking that a business or a residential property may have. So, yeah, I'd encourage you to support the motion because it just means that the actual parking controls we put in will actually work. So those two things are tied. So, like I said, there's a bit of angst around it. However, this doesn't actually, there is for special needs or people who don't have off-street parking, there is the ability to apply for a parking permit. So that still exists, this doesn't change. So I encourage you to support that part of the motion.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Wynne?
Yeah, I agree with Councillor De Backer, about, yeah, the requirements for getting the permits, because yeah, otherwise it would just be pointless having these parking controls put in, so I support the motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Barnett?
Yes, yeah, I think that through the subsequent consultations and this one that we've taken into account, so instead of taking, I think we had previously quite a bit of a hard line on things. So ones that, like, you know, there are a few like heritage houses that there's just no way, you know, you can build a carport or have access. So I think we're taking into account some of the feedback from the people who are affected by that. And again, as Councillor Bax pointed out, that you can't just willy-nilly hand out, you know, temporary special use and that. And also, I think we took notice for temporary special use that there were a few able to be applied for, like if you had work being done on your property and things like that. So I think it's important just to be a little bit, you know, flexible, but not so flexible that it doesn't work.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Berg?
Just to make the point that this particular recommendation is not just relevant to Village Heart, this is across the city, so it's, unless I'm incorrect with that name. So this is for side streets, main roads, Village Heart and so forth. I won't be supporting this recommendation, but I just want to make it clear that this is not just this is not a Village Heart issue around the permits, this is a much broader issue.
Thank you. Back to you, Councillor De Backer.
Councillor.
Sorry, sorry, Councillor.
I think this section is really important because it gives guidance to staff, clarity, it gives them like, it defines, you know, the situation. So when they go out there and, you know, what are they looking for? They revert back to the policy. So I think this is really important, not just in that part, but just elsewhere around our city. So I really think this is important as guidance for staff when they're going out there to do, when they're on the road doing in this situation. So I'll be supporting this.
Thank you. Councillor Backer.
No need to sum up anything.
Yeah, okay, let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, 10.16.5. Do I have a mover? Councillor Backer.
I'll leave it, but I also got a question. Again, just for the benefit of the elected members, can we explain the temporary parking restriction alteration fee 350? It's considerable sum of money, just through the chair, why the high price?
So yeah,
So I think it's predominantly to do with the signage it's required, Mr. Delana.
Through the chair, so I think that's a cost link that lines and signs to create effectively a temporary parking zone. So that we have vital otherwise.
Yeah.
So that is effectively an average cost. There'd be some that are more, there's some that we end up being less. We thought that was just the easiest way to reply on our experience.
Yeah, just one more question, just with the parking, there's replacement, change of details and special permit use, that there's not an annual fee listed here. I'm assuming there's still an annual fee for the residential parking permits.
Mr. Delana.
Through the chair, and that can change, so these are new application fees, so the existing fee will remain. That effectively it's a replacement fee, will be a number of requests coming through, that the value of those benefits really being acknowledged. You see in the report, there's just a churn. We want to implement effectively a fee associated with the replacement, as well as effectively changes in details associated with permits, that multiple people changing permits on vehicles throughout the course, and that just takes a lot of admin time, and we want to have some recognition that the fee is associated with that.
Yeah.
So the fees themselves, Mr. Delana, are captured within our fees and charges register.
We will remove fees, the existing $105 to a residential parking permit will remain in place.
Thank you. Yeah, so on that, so thank you for clarifying the fees and charges, and you know, we have to realise that, you know, a space in village, not say village, across the whole city, on-street parking is, you know, if it's there, it's great, but it's not a given. So I think that we've got this structure in place that we can say, okay, those in need are able to apply for a parking permit. So again, it gives peace of mind, I guess, to the team that they've got clear direction from council. So we're not getting operational as elected members, and they've got a clear policy in place. So I'd encourage you to support the motion. I know it's not popular, but it certainly does assist the team in doing what they need to do.
thank you, Councillor Backer. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Nelson.
Yeah, look, I'm happy to support. Obviously, as Councillor Backer said, that these things are never popular, but I think it's about responsibility. Most of these things, and I certainly read how some of these parking permits have been replaced a number of times because people change their cars or try and get different registrations of it. And I just think if we do start to charge these fees, it's going to turn off a lot of those try to change vehicles too often. I think it's a very, very small fee to pay for the work that we go through. So I fully support the motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, just with that new temporary parking restriction alteration fee, $350. So I understand that is like if signs need to be replaced and, you know, all the but so just to allay fears that, you know, it's something price gouge. So I could just have reassurance that it's actually nearer to like cost price rather than being a huge profit. I guess it's the best way to put it through the.
So yeah,
Mr. Delana.
Through the chair, staff have modelled what would be a typical cost, especially with 2 signs and plays and some line marking, and effectively modelled it on that cost. That's effective. There's certainly no price gouging here. This is what we see would typically be a allowance for a average alteration of this nature would be sought. The instances which be less, and more what we average.
Yes, good. Thank you.
thank you. Any further discussions? Okay, back to you, Councillor Baker.
No need to.
Okay, let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thanks very much, everybody. Okay, on to item 11, general business of an urgent nature. Is there any general business of an urgent nature? That's the group. Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have one item which I think is considered urgent general business. However, it does have a commercial confidence component to it. So I would ask that I could raise it perhaps in the confidential section of the meeting tonight.
Yeah, I'm aware of the matter and can confirm that I think it is urgent. And also, as you've mentioned, due to the commercial and confidence nature of it, we certainly can discuss that after item 16.2.
Thank you.
No worries. Councillor Baker.
I too would like to raise the item and also require it being addressed as it relates to being commercial nature.
Okay, we can't discuss it to work out whether it's urgent, but I'm happy to defer that one to be discussed after item 16.1 as well. 16.2, sorry. Okay, that takes us to item 12 on the agenda, reports for information. So information reports can be resolved on block. We have 4 reports, the Merrill Monthly, noting that there was an amendment made after the activity report had been printed and that I didn't attend the North Adelaide versus Adelaide football game, and I'd like to thank Councillor Nelson for stepping in and doing a marvellous job by all accounts of hosting on that day. Some of the best hosting that's been seen for a while is what I heard. So well done. And thank you. Minutes for Chief Executive Officer's Performance Development Review Committee, 2022 Resident Survey Results, and 12.4 is Summary of Miscellaneous Technical Enhancement Code Amendment Outcomes. Would anyone like to withdraw any of those items for further discussion? Councillor
Mayoral report, please.
Well, I get to ask the reason for withdrawing.
I just like an update on the walk of Ollie Street that you undertook with the MP and the MPs.
Yep, certainly no worries. Do we resolve the ones on block first or? Sorry, Councillor Back.
I'd like to put out 12.4. So I need to enhancement code outcomes.
Okay, so if there's nothing else, then we can resolve items 12.2 and 12.3 on block. Do I have a mover? Do I have a second? Any further discussion? Summary. Excellent summary. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Item 12.
Who seconded? I'm not sure.
Councillor Group.
And Nelson, I seconded. Sorry, it's letting it light here.
Beat me.
Quick money's good meeting. Okay, so item 12.1 Merrill Monthly Activity Report. So there was 3 ministers plus their assistants, plus the member for Adelaide, Lucy Hood, myself, and the headmaster. Is that the right term? Of Prospect Primary School. So we met at around 2:50 and we were together until about 3:15. So we got to see it go from relatively calm through to relatively hectic. And we started off at the exit nearby the disabled parks, and we viewed the fact that there was only 2 disabled parks and there was at least 4 parents with disabled children. So there's a bit of a mismatch there. Then we walked up to Burridge and Staples and viewed activities on that corner. Then we went down to the corner of Braun Road and at Gladstone to check out what is probably the most chaotic part of it there. There was people walking across the road at all points, mostly ignoring the flags and the lollipops. So there was a good discussion and good questioning by the ministers. There seemed to be a general consensus that there was an issue there, albeit that a similar issue at a lot of schools. However, it was definitely noted that there was an issue there. There was discussions around a pinch point that had been put in by council some years ago, which didn't seem to suit much of a purpose because there was the lollipops and the crossing was further down. So there was discussion around removing that and creating 2 more parks. There was discussion around a previous suggestion that a pathway be put on the edge of the inside of the fence of the Prospect Primary School Oval to allow kids to walk safely down the path and then go into there and walk down through there. There was talk about a crossing there at the elbow, Courage and Staples as well. And there seemed to be a fair bit of enthusiasm from the ministers there to do something. And then I know there was a fairly immediate contact the next day. Sam was contacted by one of the departmental, I'm not sure what the position was, Mr. Galena, that you were.
Mr. Lane?
So yeah, I was contacted by the executive director, so I got a specific title, Andy Excel. He was present at the meeting. I know Andy for a long time. There's certainly an appetite to work with council and in terms of doing some sort of study in that area, the extent of which needs to be determined, and in the process of coordinating a meeting between the PIT and my team, coordinate what that might look like. Certainly an appetite to fund that from its perspective, and we both agree those private schools come to the party with respect to, effectively not just what is within the council confines, it needs to be a holistic solution within the school as well.
Thank you. And there was talk about a master plan, which may not from part of the ITP that we're going to be undertaking. One thing I noticed was I left at about probably 3:10, 3:15. And it was very active on Gladstone Road. I walked through the school to Olive Street to go and get my car, which I'd parked up the road in our car park here, and there was no one around. So, one of the strange things about that was that everybody seems to pour out of the one exit, and that there in itself contributed to the busyness of that area. So whether the school could actually look at dispersing through two different exits and pushing some of the kids out onto Olive Street and some on Gladstone Road, there was literally no one there. There was car parks right outside the school gates there, completely a different vibe to Gladstone Road. So yeah, that was the nature of the conversations.
Yeah, can I make a comment there, or we're not allowed to?
Well, someone needs to move the motion.
You can move the motion.
Oh, okay, sure.
Would you like to move the motion?
I'll move it, yes.
Okay, feel free to comment.
Look, thank you for the update. It was great. Obviously, as you're probably aware, I had a meeting very similar a few weeks ago. And we made the same sort of point with regards to Olive. And it was deemed then that because there's a crossing on Braun and on Gladstone, but no crossing on Olive, the vast majority of people exit from that northern end of the school, because there's just no crossing on Olive. So yeah, no, thank you for the update.
No worries. So I'm taking it that you're moving it?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll have a second it. Councillor Bonnet.
Yes, seconder, and just apropos of mentioned Olive Street and the parking there. Councillor Trin invited me to attend a meeting with residents there, and Director Delina attended. And so there were some matters there that were talked about, with regard to the situation there as well. So I don't know where that's at the moment. Yeah.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Nelson, back to you to sum up.
Just well done for last month, and congratulations to you on a great event held for the Newmark opening. I was obviously in attendance to that too, and you did a fantastic job with your the two guest hosts from Narsworth. So well done.
Thank you. Yes, well done. Okay, put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against, carried unanimously. Item 12.4, summary of miscellaneous technical enhancement amendment outcomes. Do I have a mover? Are there any questions?
Questions?
Go for it.
I have a couple of questions. So look, just thank you for bringing this information, and like in the summary, it's basically included information. Probably just one question in regards to the use of the SPDP. The last meeting was in September, referring to the terms of reference, and this is just a question through the chair to either the CEO or relevant director. Is it possible to schedule another meeting in response to this report, or how does that come about?
So yeah,
Look, move a motion and we'll schedule a meeting if you wish. The question of merit, Mr. McCluskey, Mr. Pearce. Any comments, questions around that? I guess the first question is there, what's the process for scheduling an SPDPC? Is it the chair calls one? Do we call it normally?
With the chair, without having the terms of reference in front of me, my recollection of them is that the meeting protocol allows for either staff to call a meeting because there is business from the staff perspective, or the chair of the committee to call a meeting, or two other members of the committee to request that the chair call a meeting. Is my broad recollection of how the TLI structure that process. So in essence, we anticipate the committee having a number of things to do later in this year, but just not in present time. Which is why we've had it from the staff side, and certainly the capacity in there, and then the community call them.
That was the first one, so that's great. Look, thank you for the report, and I suppose it's interesting. I'll move the motion first, then I'll speak to it. So I'll move the motion. I guess one of the things with this is that City of Prospect have been quite, say at the bleeding edge of sort of infill development, but they've certainly been working with the state and giving feedback at all the pinch points where development goes wrong. And sometimes they heed that advice. This is the state government, and sometimes they don't. So in the table at the end of this report, it actually shows what advice that Prospect has put forward and how it affects our streets and our residents, and what the state has actually. So just some examples, for example, and again, Mr. Scott McCluskey might be able to clarify if I get it wrong. My understanding is if there's a partial demolition of a local heritage listed place, you've only got a 5-day turnaround to determine if it's the right, or if it's allowed to be done or not, as opposed to the current or the previous 20 days. Would that be right?
Mr. McCluskey.
Slightly more complicated than that. This relates to that question of heritage areas where there's buildings that may or may not be identified as representative buildings as opposed to being local heritage places. And certainly the challenge for our staff is because the state hasn't, to this point, allowed us to identify representative buildings in each of those areas. Having that time frame shrink to 5 days for our staff to attend the site, form a view as to whether it is or isn't a contributor to the historic area, and enter into that process, moving that from 20 to 5 days is very challenging for us operationally, but this doesn't specifically affect local heritage places.
Okay, so just those that are representative buildings. I suppose another example as well is minor variations. So sometimes when things are referred as minor, and this is some of the SCAP approved ones, and we've given examples of in near Churchill Road, where minor variations in fact change the total fabric of the building and what it was approved. So I think it's just, look, it's disappointing because I think we'd like to see this strengthened, and I would certainly either encourage the mayor and the CEO to perhaps forward a copy of this and maybe a discussion with the local member Adelaide Lucy Wood to just like what we're trying to achieve. And perhaps where some of the code falls short on that. So I think I don't want to lose hope. I hope to continue the discussion, but I just thought I'd highlight to members how this kind of change, the technical details can materially affect the build quality and some of the what gets demolished in our area. So support the motion, and if you can have a read, please do.
Thank you, Councillor Backer. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, and it looks like, a lot of no change, no change. So much for, state government reviewing this, but I think there's still more to come. But I'm more than pleased about the one about the representative buildings, that we had a tick there. And so about to ability to now include additional representative buildings, and just have a question through the mayor, the staff. Does this make our thematic theme funding even more important, that we can get on and do that.
So, yeah,
It's probably a qualitative question. Mr. McCluskey, do you dare offer a response?
I think I can, through the chair. I would say that the two matters is somewhat unrelated in the sense that the areas to be addressed with new representative buildings have already got an identified historic value that's been agreed to by the state, and thus that's been inserted into the code as an overlay. The issue is this one of it being non-transparent to the community about which homes within that overlay area should or shouldn't be protected in a demolition sense, and that's what we're seeking to address with the representative buildings assignment, sort of identification. The thematic analysis would be the tool that we use to form a new historic area overlay precincts and and then to form new ones on the background thematic analysis. We would also seek to identify representative buildings.
Good, thank you for the explanation, and thank staff for their work on this, and for council, that would continue to be like little terriers along with some other similar councils. So I don't think we give up. We still keep on, nipping at the heels of the state government wherever we can. Thank
you, Councillor Burnett. Any further discussion? That being the case, I'll head back to Councillor De Backer to sum up. Thank you. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? And unanimously. Item 13, council member reports and briefings. Are there any brief reports or reports and or briefings? Councillor Barnett.
Yeah, just to report that on Monday, the 1st of May, I attended, and I guess along with other council members, at the invitation of our president of the North Adelaide Football Club. So that was, I think, a very good meeting with frank discussion, and I think that's, it's good to be able to have that a bit of a stronger relationship, I think, with the football club. And also, I think I was the last councillor that's standing, or something like that, but I've represented the mayor on the 3rd of May at Probus's 30th birthday, just across the road at the Alfred James Hall, and that was extremely well attended, and a birthday cake, and caught up with a lot of people, including a former councillor, Cynthia. Yes, as well. Which, so it was very pleasant occasion.
Thank you, Councillor Barnett. Any other member reports and or briefings or brief reports?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to report on activities. Obviously, as per some, I attended the CEO performance review. As with Councillor Barnett, I had a meeting in conjunction with Councillor Nguyen, with the CEO and the President of North Adelaide Football Club for discussions. As mentioned before, I attended the North Adelaide versus Adelaide football match. Attended with the Mayor of the exhibition, the opening of our new Wealth to Local Schools at the Newmark Gallery, which was a fantastic event. Also attended the National Volunteer Week Community Service Awards last Wednesday. Again, great event. Met with a number of residents regarding the old aphids on the hackberry trees over the last few days, and had a meeting with Lucy Hood MP just to compare some notes on the traffic around the schools. So,
thank you, Councillor Nelson. Any more reports and more briefings? Councillor Stanton.
Yeah, I had a meeting with Chris Mooney from the President of North Adelaide Football Club, where I was able to present him with the lifetime club membership certificate, life member certificate for Albert James Shard, who is the name that's on one of our parks over in Nailsworth. By happenstance, I managed to find this certificate at a market. Was able to buy it for the princely sum of $9, and have subsequently returned it back to the club. So that'll go into their history collection, and hopefully the family will see it there and get joy from seeing it again.
Thank you, Councillor Stanton. Any more council member reports and briefings?
I'll mention I also met up with Chris Mooney from North Adelaide Football Club. That was a good meeting. we had a bit to discuss where we go way back my family goes way back in North Adelaide. It's previously sponsored players and employed some of the footballers. So it was a friendly meeting. I attended the volunteers night the other night. That was a really good night, quite inspiring and good feeling walking out knowing that so many are willing to give to this community. And I actually had some feedback from one of the volunteers today saying the same thing. She didn't realise there were so many people working so hard in our community. So that was a good night.
Thank you. Councillor Tweedledee.
I was invited to the Mayor Service Society of Adelaide, their New Year celebration in Eliza Hall, like last month. It was their New Year celebration and they celebrated for the first time in Eliza Hall, and it was really great to see the tradition and them appreciating the space and, you know, even acknowledging that the land that they were meeting on. And it was just really nice to see the different cultures coming together. And they said that next year they'll definitely come back and you know, use the space, and they really appreciate being here. So that was really good.
Thank you. Okay, thanks everybody for your briefings and or reports. Moving on now to motions on notice, item number 14.1. Motion on notice car parking fund on page 619 with a recommendation on page 619. Do I have a mover?
I'll read it.
Just bringing to your attention that there's been an amendment to the motion compared to what was published. Yep. So I'll just give everyone 30 seconds or so just to check out the changes.
Read it aloud.
If you'd like to.
Alright. So the council sets aside in a perpetual car parking feature and reserve fund any net surplus of funds relating to expiations issued under the Australian Road Rules or Private Parking Areas Act each year, starting from the figures for income and expenditure included in the 2023-24 draft annual business budget and figures for income and expenditure included in the future draft annual budgets. 2, that directs this car parking feature reserve fund shall only be used at the direction of council through future resolutions for the purpose of providing car parking in the city of Prospect, including but not limited to the purchase of additional land, development of land or leasing of land to provide additional public accessible car parking within the city of Prospect.
Thank you, Councillor Baxter. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I'd like to. Look, this comes about, I guess, just I'm always astounded at the amount of money that we collect in parking fines. So this, you have to remember, in the city of Prospect, we don't necessarily have a paid parking position yet. But the fact that we keep fining people and we still haven't got a solution. I know we are working towards that with the ITP, but I guess I can't really justify, you know, extra fines and extra money just going into general revenue without actually looking at quarantining these funds and being part of the solution. So I can say hand on heart, you know, some of the money from fines, less the cost of actually, you know, providing that service is actually going towards the solution. I thank the administration for helping me word it, and the reason that we put in the details to do with the 23-24 draft budget is because that's what we consulted the community on. So anything above and beyond what we consulted the community on, and it also doesn't impact what we are getting for the next year, and that we'll be able to fund what we've got in the draft budget. I guess really what I'm trying to achieve is that we shouldn't look at fines as a cash cow, as a way of, you know, balancing out books on other projects. And, you know, I can look someone in the eye and say, look, you know, we're actually working towards a solution and we're putting some of that fine money aside. And what I'd love is a situation where you don't have any more fine money because we've actually got a paid parking solution or parking solution. So it's not the solution, but it's a direction that I'd encourage you to support. So we can say, look, you know, we don't want to find visitors to the city, but until such time, any extra funds we do get, let's put it towards a solution. So I'd encourage you to support the motion.
Thank you, councillor Baker. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Trinwin.
Yeah, I support the motion, and I totally agree, the revenue we're making on, the parking fines, there's clearly a issue. So we should be, focusing on the issue and trying to resolve it. So using the excess funds towards a parking resolution, and holding that money so that we can work on the future parking plans, is an excellent idea. So I support it fully.
Any further discussion? Councillor Barnett, Councillor Stan and Councillor Grove.
I think the motion has merit that has been explained. I'd just like to question, what does perpetual mean, and how long does that mean we may be locked in, and future councils may be locked into something like this?
So yeah, do you want to have a crack at that one?
So through the mayor, my interpretation that would be held in perpetuity, which means forever until we do something with it. And the motion itself sets out conditions on which that would be done, which is essentially the council approval. So again, if it's for a parking solution, then one would imagine there are a range of potential solutions that might be used, that the council might consider in the future. Obviously, that'd be an evidence-based process that would follow some consideration and evidence and professional input. And then when we had a solution ready, were some funding required, rather than going and scrambling around and trying to figure out how we're going to pay for it, we have some seed funding there, potentially through this fund.
Thank you.
Councillor Stan and Grove, and then Nelson.
I just have a question. How much are we looking at loosely? I mean, it's a net figure, so it's after all costs. How much, for instance, this year would that be?
So yeah.
Can you give us a sense, maybe on current stats as to how we're tracking this year, as to what your best guess may be, were we to continue tracking with no change on current trend data?
In the draft management footage, in the draft management 2024 budget, we have a net cost of approximately 700,000 already included in the 2024 budget. You will see at the first item, you will have seen the first item budget review. We have revised the exploration income, and the net is approximately $1 million. So should this motion get up, the initial amount would have been $3 million.
That's obviously, there's a lot of assumptions there, but
So if we don't make extra, we.
precisely. So again, just to elaborate on that, what Ms. Moon is saying is that this year so far, we're tracking toward $1 million in revenue. The budget that you have currently considered for next financial year anticipates a revenue number of 700,000. So you could be looking at some hundreds of thousands of dollars excess that would then be quarantined into this fund. Now, I will say, members, again, and I mentioned this in the CEO comment, that this would be reported on a quarterly basis through the budget review process. So you'll be getting updates on this quarterly, and members will have a chance to review that, but the money won't be set aside until the end of the year, because of course, if there's ebbs and flows of that, if we have a quiet quarter or a big quarter, then over the balance of the year, it will eventually balance out to a number at the end of the period.
Okay, given that information, I think I'd find it hard to support. I would be more likely to support it if there was a cap, if it was, say, $50,000 a year. The $300,000 in theory is a lot of money to have quarantined when we've got a lot of other things that we could be doing. I don't, under its current guise, with the income unlimited, I'd find it hard to support. If it was capped at a certain figure per year, I would at 50,000 maybe, or something along those lines, I'd be more likely to support it. But at this point, it's just a little bit too much money to quarantine, in my opinion.
Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to start with a couple of quick questions. I presume that the car parking future reserve fund is not the same as our developer contributed parking fund. Can I confirm that they are different funds?
So, yeah,
So through you, Mayor, that's correct. They won't be the same fund. One is a statutory fund we hold. This would be a separate fund. However, and having said that, one could envisage projects where you may draw from both.
Correct, yeah. Second question is, can we legally establish a fund such as this?
Through the Mayor, yes.
Thank you. Okay. Look, for me, I'm struggling a little bit with this. I think the intent is correct. Where I'm struggling is in two areas. One is that from a budgeting perspective, if we've this year netted $1 million in parking revenue, then our budget should reflect that for revenue for next year. And unless there is a spike or a reason why that we've done so much more or so many more parking infringements. So the effect of that, of course, year on year, if we did that year on year, is that there'd be very little going into the fund because we're budgeting pretty much what we think we're going to get for expiations. So I don't understand why our revenue figures are so much higher than what we have anticipated from a budget perspective, because it means two things. One is more people are doing more bad things from a parking perspective, but we've also got inbuilt capacity within our team to deal with it, which if they weren't doing the wrong thing, we've got unused capacity potentially for parking inspectors. So I'm trying to kind of reconcile that in my mind, but more so the issue around, you know, I would expect that we're budgeting what we think we're going to get, not a lower amount, and then creating some sort of false economy that we've got this other money. The second bit for me is, and it kind of goes a little bit to what Councillor Standen said, is that I would struggle making this decision in the absence of understanding what the other pressures are. So in any given year, we might have $300,000 in this fund, but we might have something over here that's broken that we need money for that we're going to borrow to fix. So we might have a stormwater or an extra road or I don't know what could be, anything that we deal with. I would rather see this being a budget item where we say every year we're going to budget $50,000 or $100,000 into a car park fund, which is separate to the developer contributed parking fund. And we're going to build that over a period of years so that we've got some money in it. But then it's considered as part of the overall budget, not as if we have some extra cash, we'll put it over here. Because I could probably bring a couple of things which I'd say, well, why don't we put the extra cash into that instead? So I think without that context, this is really topical and really important. So I don't want to discount that at all. As I said, the intent is right, but I think it needs to be considered in the context of our overall budget, not as a separate item. Because is the parking the most important thing in our city at the moment? Quite possibly it is, but tomorrow it might be something different. And we don't have the flexibility under this motion to say, well, let's take that $300,000 out next year and apply to this problem, even though we all know it's more important. And that could mean that we borrow money to fix that problem. So that's my concern with it. So I don't think I can support it in its current form, but I'd be really open to a budget bid, if it's not too late, for this budget to say, how can we kind of factor that into the budget process? And it's in the context of all of our demands as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gray.
I'm not intending to.
Councillor Nelson.
Yeah, look, I'd like to commend Councillor Backer for the motion. I think it's on there. It's a great idea. I love the theory of it, but I think in practice it's very difficult, and I've struggled with this one since I first read it. Love the idea of having a car parking futures fund to plan for it, so hopefully fix up some of these issues in the future. But how that happens is again difficult. Following on from some of the other councillors, I don't necessarily think that having a cap at $20,000 or $50,000 a year is going to cut it. We've got some of the examples here is to purchase additional land or to develop land. $20,000 to $50,000 a year is not going to cut that. But also, if we have a look at other years like we have for this year, where it's additional $300,000, then it starts to be interesting. But we also look at the fact that the additional funds that we've received for this year has helped us to fund additional funding required for green spaces and parks and playgrounds and everything else. For one, I think I've received 1 or 2 parking fines this year. That's my fault.
Thank you.
I wear it.
Thanks, Tracy.
If I want to, if I want to park illegally, I just cop it. But now, in the position I'm in now, I go, well, you know what? I know my funds are going towards a green space or anything else. And not everyone thinks the same. I'm sort of going off track a bit, but I think it's difficult to. I don't like the word quarantine. Quarantining funds for something that we might do maybe in the future. We don't know what that is. I think it's very dangerous. And in its current form, I can't support the motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Tweenway.
I think the motion has a lot of merit. No, I feel like at the moment for our city, this is a major issue, and I know, and I think Councillor Thacker is trying to, trying to address this emerging issue that we have in our city right now. So, but I think it's the amount and it's the perpetual, the ongoing, and we don't know what's going to happen the next day or next year, and we might need that. We might need it. So. I'm thinking of putting in a sort of motion to an amendment to maybe cap it, if that's okay, cap the amount, so that we can put something towards it and we'll work towards it. Whereas at the moment it's like everything's got to go into there. So I feel that I just want to test the floor if that's okay. That we cap it at. I don't know, I just want to test the board to can we get some advice into framing it and maybe a reasonable amount? Is that all right to just test that?
You'd have to, if you're going to move an amendment, then you'd need to list the words. Councillor Lee.
That we set aside an amount of I don't know. I don't know what is the suitable amount to use, but I don't want to see it all going into that. I just want an amount, but I don't know how much.
Let it lapse. Failed.
No, but I do see the merit. I do want to quarantine an amount to put aside for this. I just don't know what the amount, what a suitable amount is. Or maybe can it come back to us?
I'll sum up.
All right.
So you're not putting.
So I'll withdraw that. Sorry, then I'll withdraw that.
Okay. Any further discussion from those who haven't spoken yet? Councillor Hall.
Car parking is an important issue and it will continue to become a more pressing issue over the next few years. So I think we all agree something needs to be done. I'm not too comfortable with, this idea of just taking from, the surplus. And I'm not too comfortable with setting a cap, and as Jason said, 50, 100,000. In the larger scheme of things, it's not a great deal. It wouldn't put a huge dent in the purchase of, say, property, or, it will be an expensive, expenditure in the end, I think. But I think it just, I won't support this time, but I think it does call for discussion in some sort of roundtable discussion in the future, I think. And, maybe, with it, developing some kind of plan or objectives.
Thank you, Councillor Hollow.
May I ask a brief question?
It's brief.
It is brief. In the budget process we're going through at the moment, could we include such a fund when we consider the budget later or next month, even if it hasn't been consulted on?
Through the mayor, I might ask Ms. Moon to answer this. My gut feel is yes, you could, as long as it didn't materially affect I guess the rate. Yes. So again, if I can say this, noting, the question over the revenue number, and I know I've had conversations with a number of you offline around that $700,000 number in the draft budget. Look, it's open to members to stretch that a little further. Of course, there are reasons why we set the number at $700,000. That was not just us trying to create some headroom for us in terms of the budget and from a risk standpoint. We are moving toward more of an education for expiation approach, and we do genuinely hope that that will start to see more traction in the coming year. However, current trend suggests that we are still struggling with a range of issues, in particular And for those watching this, it's cycleways. Please don't park in cycleways. We don't want to fine you, but it's a safety issue, and school zones, it's hard. We've got to look out for the safety of children. But again, you know, it's open to members to take a view on that in the budget.
Thank you, CEO. I think councillor Barnett, you're the only one who hasn't spoken. You don't have to, but you have opportunity. Or did you speak? Sorry, you had a question.
No, yeah, I did, say that I had merit and, yeah,
Sorry.
so I have spoken and asked about the picture.
Okay, great discussion. I'll now head back to councillor Rebecca to sum up.
Yeah, so look, thank you for indulging me, and obviously it's come to this from frustration, and I suppose I just feel, you know, fines without some solutions is challenging, and I'm still uncomfortable looking at fines as part of our budget line. It is a substantial, you know, part of our income. However, I note the really interesting comments around the table, and I think what this does highlight is that the current group of elected members are really keen to have a workshop to discuss, you know, funding some parking solution and traffic management solutions where fines are happening. And certainly, you know, having talked to Director John Pierce, you know, there are issues around things like signage, you know, crossing across driveways, and there being no hockey stick, you know, line marking. So there's ways that we can actually make people's lives easier. So it's actually clear where they can and where they can't park and what they should and shouldn't be doing. So I'm really loath to penalise people coming to the city of Prospect to think that we could actually be giving better solutions for traffic management and parking. So look, I kind of, you know, sense the feeling around the table it's not going to be supported. But look, seriously, if you want solutions for parking, please put motions in front of us. What you think will work, because we haven't addressed it. Like, you know, the couple of years, you know, a couple of terms I've been on council, you know, I've certainly tried to get some things up, and there might be something in the confidence talking a bit later. But I'm really keen to see in this chamber of council, we take this seriously. So if you don't support the motion this time, I'd encourage you to support some, you know, or bring some motions about parking and traffic management interventions. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Becker. Let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Not carried. Lost. Okay, moving on to 14.2, desexing cats, pages 620 to 621 in the agenda with a recommendation on page 620. Do I have a mover? Councillor Barnett.
Yes, I thought this to council, I just thought it was a very timely opportunity to support a lot of our residents who have been expressing their concerns about this, and mainly in social media. And we have residents who are foster carers. So I think there is a lot, you know, quite a bit of interest in our community. I declare I'm not a cat or a dog owner. But and also I think it was very timely that they're actually I knew about one petition that was brought to my attention by residents, but there's also and that was the one in by Ms. Thompson MP, but there's also another one I found by the Honourable Tony Franks in the legislative upper house. So they're all about the same thing that this motion is about. So I thought that you know, it's very timely, and I also think that because in our cat management plan that our nominated Shelter the Animal Welfare League, they're undergoing the same pressures that a lot of the others are. So, and that's what sort of caused a bit of a stir when residents found out that, you know, a lot of their cats could be euthanized because the shelter just can't cope with the demand. And also, I've been reading that a lot of this pressure brought about our current, you know, economic pressures, and with the recent legislation, people just can't, they're not affording the cost for desexing the cats. And so it's reached this point. So I thought we could just do something that's, you know, some may think it's symbolic and all that, but I think it just shows support for our residents who do care in this area. It shows support for our shelter that we provide, you know, take our animals through our staff person. And I've also taken note of the CEO's comments, and I contacted the CEO today and clarified with him that where I put in my motion about rights for members, rights includes emails. And so we could be using or the staff could be using email correspondence to the municipality instead of a physical letter. And in the CEO's words, it would dramatically reduce staff time by about 40 to 50%. And also, I think there appears to be a cost saving with no postage and no cost of registration of letters. So I think with that information, I hope that you'll support the motion.
Thank you, councillor Becker. Do I have a seconder? Barnett, sorry. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Green.
Look, I'll second it. I was going to make the same point around emailing, so I probably wasn't going to support on the basis it was going to take someone a whole day to do this, but if the time is significantly reduced, I'll support the motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Back to you, councillor Barnett, for a summary.
No, I think I've made it clear about what the intent is.
Thank you. Okay, let's put it to vote. All those in favour? Against? Motion is carried. Item 15 on the agenda, questions with notice there are nil. 16 confidential items, 15.1 electricity tender update May 2023. There's a recommendation to go into confidence. Can I have a mover, please? And a seconder. All those in favour? Carried. So we're now going into confidence. So we'll wait for the room to clear and to turn up the recording.